Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Fan Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
If you're a fan of comic books and comic book conventions, Daytona Beach Comic Con needs to be on your list of must-attend events. It's a show that actually focuses on comic books. Imagine that! This year's event is happening on Saturday, September the 6th, and Sunday, September the 7th. Silverline creators will be there, so we'll see you at the show. There's a new convention in town, and it's sure to be mega fun without the mega expense. Comics, toys, collectibles, pop culture. ShadowCon, Saturday, February 1st, 2025, in Orlando, Florida. Silverline creators will be there, so we'll see you at the show. If you find yourself in the Orlando area, and let's be honest, doesn't everyone come to Orlando for the House of Mouse? Head over to Coliseum of Comics to get your comic book fix. Be sure to check out their location on East Colonial Drive, where they carry a wide selection of independent comics, including Silverline books. Stop by and don't forget to tell them Silverline sent you. Hey, if you're an independent comic creator looking to get your comic printed, look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our comics and do a fantastic job. They can even print special edition covers. When you reach out to them, be sure to tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday nights as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, Internets. Welcome to That Silverline Show on Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim TK, and I'm joined, as always, by Ron Fortier.
Howdy, everyone. Hope everybody's doing all right and having a good week.
Jose Fuentes.
Hi, everybody.
And David Rios.
Hello.
And David, you're currently in California, but I recognize those blinds behind you, so I take it your home is still safe. You're still good to go.
Still home, still safe. Yep.
Good. We will be talking tonight about the New Year's resolutions, how to commit to making your comic this year, if this is the year that you plan on making your first comic, as well as general good strategies for staying productive. So that'll be what we'll talk about. But before we get into all of that, let's real quickly just do a revamp on our previous icebreaker. But I'll just ask everyone, what has everyone been reading this week? I know I've been reading Original Sin. I've missed that when it first came out, so I've been catching up.
Nice. I don't know. I feel so busy. I haven't ever got to read anything.
That's fair.
I've a little bit of the Krakoa stuff, mainly if I'm out eating, waiting in a restaurant or something like
Right.
that. But, also been catching up on some of Independence. So I was reading some Space Ghost, catching up on a few of those. Also read one of the Red Sonja 4-issue series.
Nice.
That came out a few months ago. I got one, speaking of Silverline, that I just got in. I haven't read it yet, but Green Hornet and Miss Fury.
Nice.
I love this
Very
Jay
cool.
Lee cover. And looking at all the ones that he has coming up, all of the Jay Lee covers for those look pretty good. But the tie-in is, of course, it's Green Hornet and Miss Fury, which we've done our Miss Fury series here on Silverline. So kind of drove me to say, all right, I want to check this one out. So because I read the ones that we did, so definitely.
Okay.
Still doing right. Are we still doing? Miss Fury's still part of team ups right now, right?
I'm not sure with the current team up. She was in the last team up with
Right.
with
With
Demon
Champion.
and Champion. Yep, Demon showed up in it, but with Champion. She just seemed like an interesting character and all that, and she's in the, realm of, she's I'm not sure you guys can go, but the license is available. She's not
Yeah, she's in public domain.
public domain. That's the word that's the phrase I was looking for.
That's what I'm here for, buddy.
But yeah, and other than that, that's what I've been reading or wanting to read. So,
Nice. Okay. Ron, what have you been reading?
All right, I'm going to be that other voice because honestly, I rarely read any comics at all these days, and I mean it's rare. It's either something special from a friend of mine like Chuck Dixon or Mike Barron or whatever, odds and ends that pop up now and then that I make a point of getting. But reading is something I do all the time. And in the last week, I've read two exceptionally really fun novels. One was called Not Born of Women by Teal James Glenn. And I mean, you want to talk about a pulp story, a pulp novel. This basically imagines Mary Shelley's Frankenstein surviving,
Nice.
after the end of the book up in the Arctic, and eventually makes his way back to civilization, and it's 1930s New York, and he's literally become a private eye.
Huh.
So the Frankenstein monster is a private eye working out of New York. Amazing, really well written, provocative as hell. A lot of questions about life and philosophy. Basically, part of the subplot of the case he gets involved with and whatnot is his own questioning, much like Data in the old Star Trek series about studying mankind and wanting to know what his place in it is. So it's a first-person narrative. I found it fascinating. That's Not Born a Woman. And the second one I read after that, again, an exceptional and really fun, hard science fiction adventure novel called Tiny Time Machine. And this is from Amazing Stories Press. And it's basically these two young people find an inventor who's made a time machine out of his cell phone. And they can use this cell phone to open up portals into the future. It's wild. It's a crazy adventure. And so those are the two things that have come across my desk in the last couple of weeks, which I really, really enjoyed. I recommend highly, and people can find them on Amazon. So Tiny Time Machine by Johnny Stint and Not Born a Woman by Teal James Glenn.
Nice. All right, cool. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about how you can commit to making your first comic as a creator, or if you are a comic creator and you feel like you need to up your levels of commitment or discipline with being creative, and that's kind of your New Year's resolution. Kind of some things that we've learned over the courses of our careers, tools we can use, as well as just general guidelines that we follow or don't follow or are aware of and choose not to follow. So this might be a do as we say, not as we do type podcast. So I guess I'll hit the, as Ron brought to my attention, I'll just kind of hit the the funny business stuff on the head at first. It was just don't pull a diamond and get to a point where you have to go bankrupt.
No.
If you're a creator, understand that you are a business, and if you are, working in as a writer or as an artist, keep your books in order. Make sure that people you need to get paid, and try to have more friends in the industry than you do enemies, because they might be willing to bail you out with work.
Yeah, well, that's networking, and it's invaluable. It's absolutely invaluable. I mean, I can remember having a slow period in my career, and because I made friends with a fellow writer who ended up getting a job in Florida at the new Techno Comics at the time when they came on the scene, and got a job as an editor there. And I think within 3 or 4 months of them coming into operation, right? I mean, I hadn't even given any thought to contacting them and submitting anything. I was between, jobs or whatever, didn't have any projects lined up. And sure enough, they launched a few titles and ended up having problems with the writers they had on hand. And because I knew this particular young editor, he started tossing my name around in their bullpen. And out of the blue, I get a call from Techno Comics, one of the editors, and asking me if I'm available to take over Gene Roddenberry's Lost Universe for them. So
Nice.
again, it's like, really, I mean, whether it's online, basically talk to other creators, get to know other creators on social sites. All right, people who do the same things we do, comment on other people's books, promote them, praise them, support them, and just make friends in the industry. And you can't imagine, how far those ripples will go to pay off, like that did for me.
Absolutely. Speaking of promoting our friends' books, I should have done this at the start here, but I forgot about it.
Wait, you forgot about it?
I forgot about it. I
Of
know.
course.
Wow.
I know. My own book. This is issue number 2 of Wolf Hunter, my book through Silverline. Our World War II spy story is currently up for pre-order on Fund My Comic. So again, this is not a traditional crowdfunding or Kickstarter where you throw money at the void and hope it gets created, and then the people making the comic take the money and run. The book's fully completed. So issue 2 is already pressed and ready to be sent to the printer. All you need to do is place your pre-order and hopefully get it in your mailbox a little bit after the campaign finishes. We have 21 days to go left on the pre-order window, and we're already 17% of the way there. Wolf Hunter is a secret history World War II spy story following some technology theft in the heart of the UK, and then it's up to a spy hunter to suss out who the spy is in a room full of liars. And of course, we do have our classic foil cover at $15. This comes through Kablam, and their foil covers look fantastic. Or if you want to catch up and you have not read issue number 1, you can get issues 1 and 2 for only $11, about the same price as picking up 2 Marvel or DC floppies from your local shop. So head on over to fundmycomic.com/wolfhunter2. It's also on the front page, and it's also linked in all the chats. Go ahead and pre-order my comic if you don't mind. If you don't, I will find you.
Yes. I mean, wait, no, get the book.
Yeah. Jose's been wanting me to body slam someone for the longest time.
Man, so bad. I've been wanting it for so bad.
Yeah.
Well, I can say that on the Sunday show, Roland had a physical copy of the special cover for that. So it was pretty nice to see.
It looks sweet.
Yeah. I mean, everything about I talk about like everything about like the storytelling, like the team that's working on this, Fujiwara, Raga, Mertonen, even Mike. Use everyone's last name except for Mike. Mike Belcher. the visual storytelling is so, I feel like, consistent with this issue, and also I believe it will be issue 3, where the way the line work matches kind of the sort of the feel of it feels very much like a Euro comic in the same way that everything is driven by the emotion of the scene and about the perception of the scene as opposed to the reality of the scene. So when you're writing a book where the creative team is acknowledging that we're all lying to the readers because it's a spy story, and a spy story always needs a good lie. When the creative team is acknowledging that we're lying to the readers, having a story where everything matches the perception as opposed to reality, I feel like it's really fun. To get back on topic, kind of like you're saying there, Ron. I think one thing's on networking and being able to pass work back and forth and invite people on the books. That also just does a lot for staying motivated if you bring someone in on the project with you, even if they're not necessarily part of that creative team. But if you're a writer, like, bring on someone to be your alpha writer and make sure that your scripts make sense. Or just being more consistent contact with your artist, to reach out to someone early on and say, like, I'm not ready to pay you yet, but I'll have this much money and these pages ready for to be like illustrated at this point. Is okay if we can like come to like a premature agreement and maybe start talking about things in the future. Just get someone involved with it so you have that little bit of there's someone else involved with this here. I'm being held accountable by this.
Well, I think that really works, exceptionally well. In that, what you're saying is, I mean, if all you're doing is working on a project by yourself, all right, I mean, initially, and you haven't brought anybody else on board, ultimately, that ends up being a lot of projects and a lot of time that there's no guarantees are going to pay off, and you end up with a filing cabinet full of projects over the years that are basically collecting dust. And I think for every project that I ever sold, all right, that I ever sold to a publisher, a comic company, or whatever over the years, I've got twice as many in that filing cabinet. The irony of all of that now, though, is I'm at this position in my career where I have enough of a name that I've got young artists knocking on my door every now and then and basically saying, hey, have you got anything at all? Because I really want to work and I'd like to get into the business, and being an established professional, I'd like to work with you on a project. And basically, it takes me all of 5 minutes to just say, well, wait a minute, I'll get back to you. And I open up that filing cabinet and go, okay, so what did I create 20 years ago? Here's a presentation package all ready to go, and dust it off, bring it up to date a little bit and send it to this young artist. And I'm actually right now working on a project that I wrote up 30 years ago because of this very scenario. I had a former Silverline artist come to me just a little over a month ago, and with that, with that question, did I have anything at all that he could look at? I dusted it off, revamped it a few pieces here and there, brought it up to date, sent it to him. He liked it. He thought it was awesome, and got back to me with a few sketches from the proposal of some of the characters involved. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but one of the things I love about working in the comic business, and we've talked about this before, all right, it's unlike being a writer of prose, where it's a solo adventure, all right? When you're doing comics, you become a part of a team. Mm-hmm. So here we go, right? 30 years later, guys, 30 years after coming up with these characters and concepts and whatever, all of a sudden I've got this artist sending me sketches of these people, right? Through his own lens, through his own talent and creativity. And you got to believe all of a sudden it's like, you know what? I think this thing might actually work. And all of a sudden I'm getting excited. I'm getting excited about something that I thought would never, ever see the light of day. So we're at the point right now where he's actually doing comic pages, sample comic pages. I've talked to one or two independent publishers and given them a heads up that we'll be sending him a presentation package. hopefully in another couple of months. So again, that also plays to the theme of whatever you do right in your career, never ever throw it away. All right, even if it gets rejected by everybody you know, put it in that filing cabinet, because you never know when somebody's going to come knocking on your door again and say, "Hey, you got anything I can look at?"
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, that's pretty awesome, actually, if you think about that, just because, I mean, yeah, you've been in here for a minute, Ron, but just the idea that, hey, do you have anything that I could work on? And you just, if you think about it, like from the other point of view, it's like this guy just went to a filing cabinet and just pulled out something great that he had, just like you said, tweaked it up a little bit, and it was ready to go. It was, you know what I mean? I asked him like 2 days ago, and he said, "Yeah, let me get back to you." And then here I am 2 days later with an email that's saying that, oh, like, here, check this out. What do you think about this? That's pretty awesome. Like, from the point of view of, I mean, I'm a professional artist by the fact that I can say it because of my work's been published, but I don't see myself like that per se. Like, to me, I'm still like a guy cutting through the weeds. You know what I mean? So like the idea is like, dude, I'm going to be working on pages that Ron wrote. You know what I mean? Man, that's huge. That swells the chest up. You know what I mean? Just from the artist point of view, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, not that I'm the guy that Ron's talking about. I'm just saying, like, I can respect that, guys. You know what I mean? Just, I can appreciate how he, probably feels about that. And just, that's awesome that you could do that. You know what I mean? That your experience, that you're, just what you've done and what you put out and what you put aside, you know what I mean? That you can do that for someone, that you could,
I mean, again, right. And this all plays up. It's all over connects, because that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't doing what I'm doing for Roland.
Mm-hmm. Right.
All right. Because here's the thing, right? As of a couple of years ago, I'm maybe doing 1 or 2 comic series. All right. I've got my long lasting Mr. Jigsaw, Man of 1,000 Parts comedy thing. All right. That Rob Davis publishes through his Redbud Studio thing. And that's a character I've been doing ever since I got into the business with my pal Gary Cotto from Hawaii. All right. Well, the kicker is, again, we're talking networking here, right? So I'm doing that, and I'm trying to think if I probably had another project in the work, but out of the blue, right? Here comes Roland kicking off Silverline. Rob gets involved with him, and the next thing you know, Rob and I are on the phone talking one day, and Rob said, "You ought to get a hold of Roland. You know Roland. You're all buddies from way back. Roland's looking for new properties." Okay, well, things dovetail, right? I'm on social media, and here comes Andrea Bermuda, right?
Yep.
Posting comic artwork, and I've told the story already. I love his artwork. I contact him. He gets back to me, recognizes my name, gets me to work on his proposal. I turn that into a presentation package. We give it to Roland, and away we go with Beyond the Stars, all right? So that a year later, this other artist, all right, sees that and gives me a ring. So it just, like I said, it feeds on itself, all right? The bigger your network, all right, the larger your network, the more your exposure. And one of the other things I've learned, and again, a little tidbit for especially for young writers, not so much artists, right? But as writers, all right, we're well aware of the fact that in the comic business, if you're going to put together a proposal package, all right, yeah, you can do it strictly alone with text. Anybody can do that. You can write up, your presentation package, your synopsis of what you're doing, a character list, personalities, divided up into a mini series graph. You can do any kind of proposal package you want, all right? But unless you've got accompanying art, your chances of getting an editor or publisher's attention are twice as high, believe me, all right? But if you can attach artwork to that, if you can get an artist who's willing to come on board with you and become part of that project, all right, then the 2 things that I tell, young writers coming into the business, don't be afraid to share what you're doing. Because if you get an artist who reads your proposal and gets fired up by it, inspired by it, whatever, and brings his or her own vision to it, then now it's become a mutual thing.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, any artist who comes to work with me on a project that I've, come up with, then automatically, if they're going to commit to that, then I consider them 50-50 as far as we're the creators. And we go to publishers or editors together. All right. It's not a case of, okay, well, this is all mine and you're just working on it. And I want everybody to understand that and whatever. And I'm like, hey, if you want to go that route, go right ahead. Okay. But it's going to be a lonely route. And you're not going to get that many artists who eventually want to come and invest their time and energy on something that you're just basically going to say, hey, you're just the artist and, a work for hire kind of BS. If you can get somebody to commit and become a partner on a project, then you just up your chances, all right? Because you're inspiring each other. You're creating something really special. You're having fun doing it, and who knows, where that leads.
Yeah.
But don't, again, just hogging other people's talent. I can remember being a young writer in the business, and we'd go to cons, and writers would get together, and it was like, you don't want to tell people what artists you're working with because you're afraid they were going to call them and get them on their project. So it was like we were all hush hush, keeping our artists locked up in our cellars someplace so they only work for us. All right? It's like, what are you doing? It's absolutely ridiculous. All right, it's just crazy. There's a karma, I believe, okay, to the universe where if you put yourself out there, if you use your creativity positively, if you bring people on board and you share with them and you're honest with them and you communicate with them, all those things come through in what you're creating. All right. And believe me, if you're having fun making comics, you want to share that with as many people as you can.
Right. I feel like at the core of that is kind of the idea of what I think is at the core of a lot of an artist or creative's ability to be prolific, which is work on what gets you excited.
Right.
Something that I heard, particularly during my time at Full Sail when I was going to school, but I still kind of hear it from newer writers, is I want to write this because I feel like it's like this movie or this book, and so they'll probably sell well. And I feel like it's a really good way to self-sabotage. I know there's some people that what they can do is go on something like Duotrope, and they'll, instead of having something written, they'll browse through the listings and they'll write to the listing essentially. And if you're looking for a writing exercise, that's one thing where you're like, you want to stretch out your muscles. But I feel like the best luck I've had with putting on something that I felt like was quality was working on something that I think is a cool idea and then finding the listing that matches it afterwards. I think that will drive you to write what you know, which means that you can write it authentically, but also allow you to write it passionately, so in a way that you're excited to carry through to the end and you don't get lost somewhere in the second act. I think that also kind of works for everyone on the team, especially with comics, where we talk a lot about matching the right artist to their project. I mean, if I'm, Jose and I talk about each other's backgrounds and what we've worked on, so I know that, if I'm going to work on a smut book, I'm probably not going to pitch that to Jose. He's been there, he's done that, doesn't want to do it. But if I want to write a Weird West vampire book, I'm sending that Jose like in a heartbeat because I'm going to get messages in the middle of the night with like character pitches. So it's we have some questions in the chat we'll get to at the end of the show that kind of touch on this. But if there's something that you're excited about, there might be some legalities or stuff that you need to work around and flesh things out. And that'll probably be like a discussion for a business episode about how do you write about an existing property in a way that is then free of copyright. But if that idea is what excites you, then absolutely go for that. And that's how you got some like, I think some of the most fun stories in comics in particular.
Oh, totally. The horror stories I have are working for hire, all right, on properties that, were well known by other people, but that comes with such a a set of limitations that there's nothing you can do about. All right. I mean, basically, the editor calls up and says, okay, write this, and that's what you've got to write. Okay. And they can ask for changes. They can do this. They can do that. So, I mean, really, if you want to get mercenary and you want to collect a paycheck, then, that's a way to do that. All right. And, again, so, I mean, here we are. Well, look at the big two, the Marvel, DC, and whatever. And if you're lucky enough to get hired by them to work on one of their properties, then, yeah, it comes with benefits. It comes with financial, benefits. All right. It comes with popularity and getting your name out there and all those good things. But trust me, all right, you're going to write what they tell you to write.
Yeah.
Right? They may sit there and ask if you've got some good ideas, all right, but it doesn't mean they're going to take them and they're going to run with them, or they may take them and use them themselves, which is something you got to be really careful about. Okay, so that my thing is, yeah, work for other companies. Learn what work for hire is all about. Like on the job training. Learn to work within parameters, all right, and to tighten what you do creatively. But at the same time, all right, be working on the things that you want to do. Be putting together projects and those kind of things that mean a lot to you. I mean, the times that I was writing Terminator and Green Hornet for Now Comics, I was creating a series called The Boston Bombers, which was an alternate world adventure. And, every day, every week, I'd be writing a script and Terminator one week, Green Hornet the next week, and then I'd have a couple of weeks off, and I'd work on that Boston, Bombers project until ultimately, at a convention, ran into Gary Reed at Caliber Press, gave him the presentation to Bombers, and again, went to an independent outfit where I kept the rights, and it was my property and my characters, and, it's still alive today. I'm doing volume 2 of Bombers today. All right. So that was where, one thing paid a lot of bills and got me into the business. But the other thing is what fed my soul. Yeah. It was the thing that I was really proud of. All right. This was my baby, So there you go.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like something that also is crucial when it comes to completing any sort of project, because sometimes even if it is a book you're passionate about, especially if you're a younger creative, so you're fitting in time to write or to draw or color after working an 8-hour shift is after those 8-hour shifts or after like living life, you may not necessarily have the motivation to be creative. And so this is kind of where the quote, inspiration is a fool's idea of determination, or a fool's idea of discipline comes in, where I feel like one of the most important things you can do as a creative is just protecting your time to create. Or that be setting aside like 30 minutes where you tell everyone like in your house, like, hey, I'm writing. This is more work time. Don't talk to me. Or however you need to pencil that out, or if it's like, you get 2 hours on a Saturday, that's a creative time. So you block that off on your calendar. You make sure you don't schedule anything else around that. And even if you don't necessarily feel like you've been productive, you at least have gone to sit down at your work desk or your workstation for those 2 hours and put some sort of gobbledygook on paper somewhere. Just to build the habit as well as to enforce the idea of this is creative time.
Yeah.
I had to do that from art school. I would have to, I would come home, and like I said, I drove an hour there, an hour back, and I would get home at like 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I'm like, listen, don't bother me until dinner. I'll come out for dinner. I'll eat, but then don't bother me. You can come in and say goodnight when you go to bed, but like specifically for school, those are my times. Like you can't bother me. But on the weekends, like I will put school aside until you guys go to bed. And if I have anything extra on the weekends, and the weekends are all you guys, let's go do something. Let's do whatever. Spend time with the kids, spend time. You know what I mean? We'd go and just do like church events or go like fall festival events, because we were in Pennsylvania and autumn was awesome and gorgeous. with the mountains and the leaves changing and everything. So like definitely like set your time aside. It's easier for me now because the kids go to school, and so I have like, you know, I wake up 9-10 o'clock and I have until they get done with school to work, and then I'm with them for dinner. If I'm over here drawing or now we're doing something else, it's by the time they get home, it's really just kind of casual stuff that I do because I like drawing all the time anyway. And you know, then dinners together, and then they go to bed, and I go right back to work, you know, working on stuff I need to. But definitely have to make sure you prioritize your time. If you have family, if you have kids, make sure you designate time, even if it's just like a Sunday or the weekends. Like this is the time for the family. This is the time we're going to go out and do something. Mom wants to go to the park. Let's go to the park. You know what I mean? Like mom wants to go swimming. Mom wants to go to the beach. I don't like the beach. I'm going to go because mom and the kids want to go. Which is really funny because I live in Florida and I hate the beach.
Well, the sand is coarse and it gets everywhere.
Well, except for Siesta Key. In Sarasota on Siesta Key, the sand is actually imported in and it's ground. It's like a fine sand. But I hate the sand between my toes so much.
You have to figure out again, and basically, I think they've taken surveys in the past. Like I used to see this years ago about the habits of successful businessmen, and whatever. And one of the items that always seemed to make those lists was time management. Mm-hmm. How well you manage your time. All right, and I can remember coming back from San Diego Con, having gotten the gig to write Terminator for Now. And at that time, my wife and I were both working at a local General Electric factory. And I mean, that's a 40-hour week and sometimes overtime on weekends. And, family and doing all those other kind of things. So basically, it was a case of they wanted, a script a month. It's a monthly comic. I had to write, a 22, 24-page script, one a month for them. And that was my first, real professional, job. So by the time we got home, I had worked out, and I told Valerie, my wife, I said, well, okay, so here's the kicker. I said, rather than kill myself and just try to push, things way too much, there's really no rush here. I said, basically what I'm going to do is after we come home from work at the end of the day, all right, clean up, run errands, whatever errands I had while she had dinner going, have dinner. And then I'd go off into basically what, was my office at the time, which was the next spare bedroom, and write 5 pages. I broke it down that I would write 5 pages a day, 5 script pages a day, 5 comic pages a day. All right. No more. When those 5 pages were done, I'd close up, shut the PC off and go join her in the living room and watch whatever, little TV was left, go to sleep, and we'd get up next morning. So 5, 10, 15, 20, comes Friday, I've got 24, 22 pages, whatever it was at that time, and I was done. All right. That script was done for the month. Okay. Saturday and Sunday was basically, like Jose said, for family and doing whatever we wanted to do, go to the movie or whatever, right? Not kill yourself and send that in. Okay. So that's going rather well. If I had free time, I would work on other projects, like I said, coming up with different concepts and ideas. Well, lo and behold, I'm doing this regiment for maybe 3 months, and I get a call that they sold the Green Hornet project that I'd given them. And now it was like, okay, so now we want you to write the Green Hornet once a month. Okay, done deal. So first week of the month, sit down and do the 5 pages a night and get a Terminator script done. And often, FedEx or whatever on Friday afternoon or Saturday morning. The following Monday, sit down, start writing the next Green Hornet. Boom, boom, boom. First 2 weeks of the month, got my scripts done, worked on other things I wanted to do. What I began to understand doing this is the regimen just fell into place. It became second nature to me. It worked with the family. It basically, like I said, I never shirked whatever responsibilities I had. You pay your bills, you take care of your family, all these good things, okay? at the same time taking what was a love and a passion and making that work professionally to the point where I began to understand in this business, especially in this business, okay, editors and publishers soon begin to understand the people they can depend on, the writers and artists who meet their deadlines. All right. And man, the kiss of death to your comic career out there is if you start missing deadlines.
Oh, yeah.
And in 50 years of doing this stuff, I've never missed a single deadline.
Wow.
That's what you do. By hell or high water, you do it,
Right.
okay? If this is what the editor wants and you agree and you've got a contract, then you deliver.
Absolutely.
I will say that's what Rags Morales said to us at class too. Like one of the major killers to your career is not turning stuff in on time.
Well, I mean, yeah, as a kid, I'm reading Marvel comics when they came on the scene, right? And I think all of us here as comic fans, all right, you start reading comics as a young kid, or in David's situation, even a little older than that, older kid. Okay, Dave? The kicker is you soon begin to recognize who the artists are. All right? And you begin to understand their styles. And I mean, this was even before they were getting credits on the pages. But I would start to know which artists I liked, which I preferred subjectively, okay? Those kind of things, all right? And all of a sudden, it's like, I'm reading comics and I'm seeing one or two artists pop up out of nowhere whose work is brilliant. It's absolutely gorgeous, all right? And they're working on a series I bought every month, okay? And they're like going to be doing this like 4-issue run on this particular one title at Marvel. And I get the first 2 monthly issues, and come the 3rd month, I pick up that issue, and it's one of their other regular artists. And I'm like scratching my head going, what happened? I mean, because the other guy's stuff was so beautiful, all right? Well, what you learn ultimately in this business is there have been artists who've come into Marvel or DC with amazing craftsman-like skills to draw, but they're slow as molasses. And they get on monthly books and they can't make the deadlines.
Right.
So basically what you've got fans seeing this work, loving it, becoming their fans, and suddenly they're off the cliff and you're scratching your head going, what happened? Because an editor can't wait. An editor's got a deadline to meet. The presses have to roll. You've got to get pages there. So they turn around and look at, whoever's in the bullpen, who's dependable. His artwork may not be as pretty as the guy you liked in that Vanity Comics, all right? But he delivers on time. And that's the other thing I learned, all right? It's like, know which artists that are reliable, that are going to meet those deadlines, and that's who editors would go for. And even if the fans can kick and scuff and say, well, his work's not as beautiful as the other guy, well, no offense, but I mean, one of my all-time favorite artists ever, and God bless his soul, may he rest in peace, was Dave Stevens. Yeah. It's Dave created Rocketeer, all right? Went to Eclipse with Rocketeer and wanted to sell them Rocketeer. And whoever was running Eclipse at that time looked at those pages, sat down with him and had an honest conversation to the point of the realization that, no, we can't give you a monthly title because you'll fail. The best we can do and get this across is let you have 8 pages as a backup feature, which he could manage. And that's why when the Rocketeer came on the scene, he didn't have his own comic. He was in the backup of, I'm trying to remember, it was a Mike Grell title, I believe, or something.
Star Slayer or something like that.
Yes, there you go. Way to go, Dave. Yeah, he was the 8-page backup because that was the best he could give them without, missing a deadline. And that never changed his entire, life of doing the Rocketeer. Even after it was famous and whatever, you couldn't get blood out of a rock. Dave was a perfectionist. And it shows in his work. I mean, it's so bloody beautiful. Your jaw drops and you look at it. But it took a long time to produce.
Yeah. I feel like that's also the, I think everything, when it comes down to it, the secret sauce of being productive as a creative. I'm going to quote, or originally, this is like one of my favorite quotes because of how many people it's passed through and has been changed every time. Originally, it's Voltaire, and then passed along through just about every other like politician in general until it was Commandant Khrushchev, the Russian general who assaulted Berlin. But is the enemy of perfection? The enemy of perfection is complete, right? Or complete is perfection is the enemy of complete, something like that. Where the idea is, if you don't have something done, if you don't have something complete, by definition, it cannot be perfect. Perfect is a value that's going to be assigned to it by someone else. So, like, as an outsider, like, and this is like, if you look at like every great movie or every great thing that a lot of people look back on, The Godfather and said like, oh, this is the perfect movie. The creators hated it to the point that they made 2 more movies and fell short every time because they kept on trying to like overcomplicate it. And it's that same idea. Like Alan Moore famously hates all of his works, despite the fact that everyone looks at Watchmen and says like, this is a great comic. So understand that at some point you're going to need to call a book done and send it off.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah.
I would say from an artistic point of view, that is rough.
Yeah.
Man, there are stuff where like I have just worked it, and I'm like, no, I still got to keep going. And I have to like honestly check those things with other people. I'm like, to my wife, I was like, what do you think? And she's like, yeah, that looks great. Like, you're done. I was like, yeah, but this is no, dude, be done. It's like you've worked on that way longer than you should have. I'm like, I know.
Yeah. I mean, the thing you have to accept that, and you have to tell yourself, okay, this is as good as this is. I'm going to send it out, but the next one will be better, and that's what you do. And the next one will be better, and the next one will be better. But this, what Tim's alluding to is this is an imperfect world. There is nothing perfect 100% in this world. Okay. I mean, I read scripts and comics that I wrote, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and I cringe. If I were writing them today, they would be totally different.
No.
But it is what it is. Okay. Hopefully the next time I write another script, it'll be better than the last one I did. But yeah, get it out there. Mm-hmm. Get it published. Get it in print. Because reworking it, it's nobody's ever going to see it but you. That's it.
Right. That's well, this will probably be like a whole other show, but the idea of what gave me my own like sense of like peace and being creative is Ira Glass's idea of the creative cycle. Taste informing skill pursuing taste, and then they both will level up, and then the cycle repeats. Yeah. And that's
we lose Jose.
I think so. Jose might have to go and do something. So
I think he had to jump on something, or
yeah,
we didn't lose him. He's attending to something else.
Aha.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll hide his screen for a second until he comes back to us. But I know we have all kind of been dominating the conversation here. So, David, I want to get your take, your opinions here. If you have any thoughts on how do you kind of commit to completing your projects outside of if it's just the kind of same things you harped on, or if you have kind of your own thoughts on practices or disciplines that you've built over the years?
I'm not the best one to talk. I'm working on Demon. It is hard. I've tried a whole bunch of different things. I've tried, I talked about them before. I've tried music to try and drive things. I've tried things of separating the space. So like job one is in a completely different room than this. And it's kind of a get up and go go into the other area and, you know, it's like going to a different building type thing almost. But it's difficult, and the creative aspect that you mentioned is hard. It's kind of hard for me because of the fact that my day job per se is 100% in front of the computer. I'm doing a lot of I basically work in the IT industry, so I'm doing a lot of trying to solve problems, trying to work things, solution things, plan things, try and keep things moving, and all that stuff. So it's very hard for me at the end of the day because I'm completely drained. You know, by the time I leave job one, I'm mentally and kind of physically drained. So coming in and saying, all right, well, let's sit down and let's be super creative it's tough. It really is tough. And for the people out there that are doing it, you know, you've definitely got that, you know, like Ron has talked about, you got the things that pay your bills, and then you got the things that you like to do. So you got to, unfortunately, the pay the bills for me is more the thing that I have to, I have to focus on and keep that going. So with that in mind, I try to see if there's something I can do. Some things I've tried is like putting a time limit and saying I'm only going to do this. And one of the things that was touched on before is when we talked about Dave Stevens. I am a huge perfectionist. Doesn't mean my work is great, but you know, I'm one of the ones that I go and work on something, and I will zoom in at 300%, and I'm going and trying to do a screw head in a metal plate in a background, and it's like that screw head to me has to be perfect, and I have to learn to stop doing that.
Yeah.
And I get my wife all the time. It's like, that's good. Why, you're good. And it's like, and I'm constantly trying to rework things on how I do things, because I'm kind of one of the ones that, if you kind of sit there and say, all right, well, I'm going to, for example, start up in the upper left-hand corner, and I'm going to work my way, but I'm not going to progress until I do, until this looks good. Well, the problem is you never get to the other side. It takes so long to the other side that you're either really worn out, or on the flip side, you've just wasted hours and hours because your mind is wandering and you're focusing on this and, and going. And, meanwhile, you step back and you look at the page, and it's like, oh, okay, well, a quarter of the page is done. I should have had 2 pages done by now, but a quarter of a page is done. But I like the way that looks, but I can still go back and tweak that and do that. So those are things that I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to look at different processes, different things that people do. I've been watching some of the some of the colorists that were that they're working on Marvel projects and all that, and it's kind of nice because a lot of them have a lot of people that go in and prep pages, and they just sit there and they have a big tablet right here, and they go and go as fast as they can be, and it works for them. It's very hard for me to try and do that, but so it's trying to get different feedback on the way people do it, and trying to kick myself into it needs to be good enough, and I need to get over the fact that it's not good enough for me. I just need to get it done. And ironically, there was I was watching the Sunday Sunday stream a couple weeks ago, and I was kind of communicating in with the in the chat session. I wasn't part of it, but Roland made a comment on there, and where I had a conversation and I had some examples, and I put the examples up there, and I said, well, this, and this is why I did this, and should I do this, and whatever. And he didn't say it to me, but he was saying it, on the stream to the others. He's like, I looked at what he did, and I couldn't tell a difference on what the two scenarios were. That he was, even though he wrote and I wrote a big paragraph of whatever, he saw, I just couldn't see it, because again, it's that whole, I'm getting into the microscopic minutia of it, and all I'm actually doing is hurting myself, because I'm too focusing on things that are not important. And like I said, you can zoom in to a page 600% and get that screw head just perfect. But when you go back and you say, all right, well, what's the printed page look like? The printed page is not even 100%. It's a much less. You're taking an 11 by 17 and getting it down to 7.5 by 10, and that screw head doesn't even exist in that anymore. Yeah. So that's kind of my take. Is I have to kick myself into not being such a perfectionist.
Hyper focusing.
It doesn't mean, even though perfection is not, doesn't mean it's good. It's just that thing in the back of my head. And one last thing I wanted to touch on, that Ron touched on a little bit, and Tim went through, as a writer, for you guys to sit there, be able to say, I'm going to write for 30 minutes, or I'm going to write for this. There's a sense that the time that you spend on the page is a lot less. And Jose can follow me on this, but from an art perspective, a half hour is a drop in the bucket. It's like, if we said, all right, well, let's go ahead, we're just going to spend an hour. We're almost just getting started by the time that half hour is done.
I would imagine that we would have to just take it proportionately, right? So, writers can just, in my opinion, I'm not a writer, but hey, this is the topic I'm going to write about, right? And we hear okay, this is what we're looking at. Now we got to figure out, well, how to work that out. Especially if you're doing page work, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You have to take it. I print the scripts, you know what I mean? You got to rough it out, and I thumbnail the entire page, trying to figure out exactly what's going to work, and then arrows to myself of this panel or this panel over here. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think you have to take that perspectively, whereas let's say a writer is I'm going to spend a half hour or an hour working on this, you know what I mean? Proportionately, as a penciler, as an inker, I definitely take more time penciling than I do inking. You know what I mean? So if that's the case, then I'm going to take, let's say 3 hours or 4 hours penciling, but I'm going to only take maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours inking before I get up and go do something else, because, you have to. Sometimes you just need to walk away. If you overlook at it too much, you know what I mean? And I do this a lot. If you overlook at it, you know what I mean? Then, like you say, you're going to hyper focus on one little, this has to be right. If this looks right, then it's going to sell the whole thing. And then you go to print it off and whatnot. It's you can barely see that part. So I totally get that.
It's one of the things that you learn really quick in this business as a writer, right? Is that, here I am, a young guy breaking in and writing, scripts and turning them in. Like I said, I do a comic book a week, all right? And I'm anxious to see the art, all right? But you know what? It's going to take that artist at least a month to draw that one comic.
Yep.
Okay? I mean, that's just a fact of life, all right? And it's you have to imagine in your mind going back to pre-Marvel, before they changed the time, they went from Timely to Marvel, that you had Stan Lee going to work every day, surrounded by a half dozen artists, and he was writing everything for them because he could do that. All right? Okay, so writers have to understand that time difference, okay? Cut artists a whole lot of slack, all right? Back off. Stop being impatient and bugging them about, hey, when am I going to see that page? And I'm right. No, just go on and write something else. And that's another lesson for young writers to learn. Once you've got a partner and you're working on the script and you've given him a script, leave him alone or her alone.
Right.
And if you're still creative, write something else.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Like that.
Whatever. But yeah, work together, mutually understanding your strengths and weaknesses together.
Yeah. Kind of those points, like right now I'm working on 3 books, and that's kind of, I just like, I mean, Donny Cates, who I talk about as being like one of the only modern comic writers to make his full-time living as a comic writer, because even at Marvel and DC, that's not what we heard of right now. Is he at his peak, he was doing 8 books a month, and he'd do through like 3 books a week, and he said, like, I could write more, and they just won't let me because we're out of artists.
They won't let me.
Here I am. I've been retired now from the day job, going on almost 20 years.
Yeah.
That's 10 comic series I'm currently working on.
There we go.
What the
Yeah.
heck?
Nice.
Because I've got the time to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Lord.
Okay. Absolutely.
Indeed.
Well, this has been That Silverline Show on Tuesday. I have to remind you all to head on over to fundmycomic.com /Wolfrunner2, or you can go ahead and pre-order Wolfrunner issue 2 and pick up issue number 1 if you missed that. We did have one question in chat, which we'll answer real quick before we say our goodbyes. Josh Perry Bloodline asked, can I write a story about WWE or a horror movie? They're talking about wanting to write an interview comic about WWE. And this is kind of what I alluded to earlier, as if that's what excites you, that's what you want to do, absolutely write that. It's when you get to the legalities that's like, because WWE is a copyrighted image, you could do what other comics have done for a long time, and how we got Spider-Man's origin story, create your own wrestling promotion. Or we do also have one of our colleagues, his name escaping my mind, who has worked at WWE before and has got the clearance to use wrestlers and their likenesses. John Crowther. However, he is a lawyer and is able to have those negotiations himself.
Right.
And if it's a horror movie, there's a ton of public domain horror movies right now. One of them just got remade. You could look at Nosferatu. You could write anything that's in public domain. It's a free game. Go for it.
Go get it. Yep.
Anything that isn't, you can be inspired by it, and you could say this horror movie meets this idea. That's absolutely.
I think that's how we got Winnie the Pooh, right? That's how we got the Winnie the Pooh horror story.
Yeah, that's my Winnie. Yeah, we got the Winnie horror movie, and then I'm working on a Winnie the Pooh vampire story.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. The horror story. I saw like the semi teaser trailer for it, and my son was excited for it. I'm like, why?
And sometimes things just aren't needed, but if it excites you, then it's needed for you, and get that catharsis.
Do your version. That's the kicker. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the old Universal monster movies. The original Bela Lugosi Dracula, Boris Karloff Frankenstein, and stuff like that. And one of my all-time favorite films of that was the sequel to Dracula, which was Dracula's daughter. All right. And I over the years, loved that movie. And the concept of Maya Vine, Meyer, she had a different name in the movie. Okay. 25 years later, I sat down and wrote my own version, right? Called The Daughter of Dracula, all right, which was my take on what Dracula's daughter would be like and whatever. And Rob Davis came along and we did it as a graphic novel, and we had a blast doing it. All right. So it's like, if there's something out there that, inspires you, that you enjoy, it's your personal thing, and you'd like to see it become a comic book and you can't get the rights, then do your version. What the heck,
Right.
you know? Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we will be back next week talking about putting historical detail into comics. Obviously, Wolf Hunter 2 is going on right now, so we're going to talk about how you as a creative team can do your research to make sure your details are authentic, and how that will give you enough buy-in that you can throw in some fake history at your readers too.
There you go.
Yes. We'll be back next week, but until that time,
Make mine
Make
Silverline.
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 Hi, I'm Greg Horn. Make mine Silverline.